Okay, so we've had a pretty big release this week, Abner. What do you think of Android 16 so far?
Android 16 is surprisingly stable for what it is. Of course, there's not a lot new right now as a developer preview 1. I kind of think if Google held modes from QPR 2 the week before and made it launch on 16, that would have been quite a big deal. But in light of what they did end up doing, it's expected DP1. The novelty is that it comes so early.
Yeah, it's just it's like kind of blagging my head a little bit. It's making me confused that we have a developer preview so early in the life cycle of Android 15. Like, Android 15 is still technically in development, right? It's got the QPR releases to come in.
Yeah, in comparison to Android 15, so we were getting short-shifted. It launched pretty late in October. It's only seeing 2 QPRs. It's already on its way out in many respects.
That feels to me like Google's like, yeah, don't even think about Android 15. We're going to go one further. It's like, here's what we've really been cooking up. It's kind of strange because even Android, obviously every developer preview usually starts with barely any changes of note, but there are some kind of nice little tweaks in there. I do agree with you with modes. I think modes would have been better in here. It would have felt a little bit more, I don't know, maybe more substantial, but there is some cool stuff. I really like the new Wi-Fi sharing the icon. Is it an icon? The QR code that's kind of more. Yeah, it's cute, isn't it? It's like it fits more in with Material U, which makes me wonder why has this not been changed previously. But clearly Google wants to continue with it if this is going to be one of those changes that appears.
For the most part, like with all these changes, they don't seem Android 16 specific. Like, I would not be surprised whatsoever if some of them get back ported to QPR 2 by the next beta or at least before launch. A lot of this it's minor tweaking, so to speak, in terms of what's live anyways. We'll see what developer preview 2 next month brings, but I think all eyes should be on the first beta in terms of something really substantial and hopefully like some of the things that we're expecting.
I mean, what's the timeline? Because this threw me off. It's been a week, right? It's been an insane week so far. So we have developer preview 1 now. So we're in the middle of / end of November. We're going to have a developer preview in December, which is probably going to be off the back of that fairly. They're substantial whether we think they are or not in terms of what they bring to the table. But there's going to be that feature drop or pixel drop, whatever you want to call it nowadays. Then the beta / beta for us Brits out there is going to be in January.
Yeah.
And then we have in February we have nothing. We have a little bit of a down month apart from another beta release. And then March is QPR 2. I forget the names of them now.
Yeah, QPR 2 will that feature drop. It's really going to be, it is such a, I don't know, it feels more compact. I think the big thing I feel like people are really caught up on is how quickly it's coming after Android 15. The public launch of Android 15, of course, it was finalized a bit earlier than that internally for Google, but it's for the outward perception. It's not ideal, I think, for Google in terms of it's just people just got 15. Most people just got 15, and now they're seeing these headlines about what's coming next, about 16, and it's this year in many ways was not ideal in terms of software for Google. It looks like it's going to be fixed come next cycle with 16, and presumably a June launch or.
Oh, I would love to see it at I/O. Could you imagine if we were sat
that's
here?
The other thing. By I/O, it'll be done. It'll the final beta is set for April, a month before I/O. It's just such an accelerated time. It feels like it is an accelerated timeline. and just the back-to-back nature is oof.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane in some respects, but in others, I kind of like the idea of having Android released at I/O. A little bit like how, I mean, even if Google plans it as a little bit like how Apple does it with WWDC and kind of like teases stuff in the next release, I think that kind of would be a really good way to do it, and that would make a lot of sense. I think if that becomes more a core component of I/O, then because obviously we get stuff, we get things that are announced, but we never really see they never really see the light of day until really, really far into the life cycle of.
It's a good point. It's a good opportunity for them. Okay, the going assumption is 16 launches in June. That's a stable launch. Now it'll line up with a 3-month feature drop cycle. But to your point, if they can announce the big... Okay, so just to rewind a little bit, it's... I/O is usually when they announce public-facing features. Past few years, Android hasn't really had any tentpole stuff, headlining stuff, big changes. I do think by April, any big design changes, any big UX changes will have to be out to allow for testing for people. But it would be so interesting if they still had some surprises that they haven't launched yet for the I/O stage. And it would make an even bigger splash if they could, to your point, if they could launch 16 publicly the day of I/O or shortly after. It's, again, I don't think this is happening because I think it's June is when they'll launch, but it would be such an interesting show and dance, so to speak, if they announce it on stage, it's ready for everybody day of. That would be something that Google hasn't been able to do for quite a while.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they said, okay, it's going to be available on this day in June, like they could give an explicit day. I think that would be really good. Like that would be cool. I think that would kind of be really interesting because
it would be.
You could prepare for it a little bit. I mean, we could definitely prepare for it a little bit better. I think the average person doesn't really care. We're not going to update for a little while, but I guess...
Again, I/O is their biggest show. It does get general news headlines, and if one of those headlines could be Android 16 is here, it's rolling out to your Pixel, partner launch is coming in a few weeks. Again, that would be really good and show all the polish for Google that, again, we haven't seen in a bit.
And I think one of the biggest things to come out of the entirety of the Android 16 developer preview is the fact that the Pixel 6 is getting it, right? So the Pixel 6 is potentially going to get Android 16 based upon the fact that it's available with this developer preview. But, I mean, there's no explicit confirmation, but it's kind of is confirmation.
We will get an explicit one in terms of, I think they want to... Okay, so it's the Pixel 6, it's 3 years OS updates guaranteed, followed by 2 years of security patches, 5 years. I would think Google is trying to hit a full 5, but I would not be surprised if they don't. I don't think they're going to comment officially, explicitly. I don't think they don't want to set a target for them in case there's, I don't know, performance issues or whatever emerges with Tensor and 5 years of updates. Should it be on paper? Should be fine. But I don't think they're just going to keep quietly doing this. And I don't think they're giving us anything more explicit than that.
I really like this, though. I think this is really good. It's like it's added value for someone. I obviously, understandably, I would have loved it if during the Pixel 6 series launch era that Google had come out and said that we're going to try and do 5 full updates. But I think it was probably safer at the time to say 3.5, the 3 OS and 5 years of security patches. But I think if you're a Pixel 6 owner out there and you've obviously seen that the developer preview is available for your device, that's just going to be a really, really nice, I don't know how to describe it, it's just added value, isn't it? It's the idea that my phone is still going to be supported beyond the window that I expected it to, and I mean, sure, you're getting the security updates anyway, so it kind of stands to reason that you're going to get some benefits from it, but I just think it's nice. It's nice for owners out there, and I have one of my friends who I think he has a regular Pixel 6, obviously. I I love the Pixel 6. It's one of my favorite Pixels in terms of the hardware. Has a few problems of its own, but I just like the fact that he will get an extra update and probably didn't realize. And yeah, they can't do any wrong with that one. I think if they do that with the Pixel 7 series as well, if they tried to, it could be a running theme. I don't know. It's just nice.
Yeah,
it's just a really nice
5 is what they should be targeting.
I don't think that there's I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't. I guess it's just development cost and time, but it's great to see. We usually don't have positive things to say about all the devices in general across all of Android anyway, but it is great to see that obviously despite the fact it has some problems of its own, obviously overheating, the fingerprint scanner's not great, the modem is very poor if I'm being completely honest. At least you're going to get some software updates. It might stay as a secondary device for someone and they're going to have fairly good performance with the device. I've been using the 6 for some video content recently and it wasn't that out of sync with the Pixel 9, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't like a million miles away, but that probably speaks more volumes to Tensor and some of the other hardware changes. But yeah, Android 16, what are you running it on currently? What devices are you currently running on it?
Pixel 9, again, I'm really surprised how fine it is in terms of performance. That being said, I don't think anybody should install it outside of developers until the beta. But
no issues with pay? You've been able to pay for things?
Oh, I haven't. No, it's not my daily driver whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think anybody out there should be... Obviously, we're praising Android 16 in terms of its stability so far. I mean, realistically, it's just Android 15 now with a few extra bits in there. But yeah, I wouldn't suggest anybody go out there and put it on their main device. I have it on the OG Fold, seems to be running nicely. The Pixel tablet. And
the Fold is really going to benefit from the update promise. That's really going to be something. So
yeah, I hope it does. I hope the OG Fold does, because if I've been completely honest, when I was using it side by side with the 9 Pro Fold, I'm going to be honest, I think I prefer the original Fold's hardware. I think the design is better, but that's probably a conversation for another day.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Android 16. There'll be more to come in a few months. So in terms of other Android news and Chrome OS, there's this rumor going on that Chrome OS and Android, Chrome OS is going to be replaced with Android. I think the high level of it. So the context is Google a few months ago announced that a lot of Android, the underpinnings of Chrome OS are going to be Android. Yeah, it's that from that announcement, it was a very technical, just the under the hood stuff. The user experience isn't going to change. That was the expectation going in from that, and that did make sense in terms of stuff like the Bluetooth stack changing, the kernel. But the rumor here is that it's a much bigger overhaul with Chromebooks running Android in the future. That it's going to be a full swap, a full replacement, and it's very early days for this. But yeah, the idea of Android being a desktop OS is, I think, what we should focus on. A desktop and a tablet OS, and I still have some. I don't know how I feel about that just yet.
It's a tough one, because I think I like the fact that Android is compartmentalized as a mobile OS. I like the idea that it's tablets as well, which, to be honest, coincides with something else that I could talk about all day. That I've done a 180 on Android tablets in the last few years. I used to think that everybody should get an iPad because but I actually think it's the opposite now. I think most people should get an Android tablet because you have more freedom, which is one of the reasons why I use Android as my mobile OS. But yeah, I think it's a strange one. It's a really strange one. The idea that Google would ditch Chrome OS, effectively ditch Chrome OS in favor of Android is
effectively is the key.
Is interesting in and of itself, because of the way that Chrome OS has kind of been, I don't know, is Chrome OS being neglected a little bit? Is Chrome OS one of those like...
I wouldn't say so. It sees active development. There's the Chromebook Plus initiative as of late to make higher end, mid range stuff with AI software features. I think, again, like, since there's so many unknowns, I think the question we should be asking here is, does it make sense for Google to have one OS for everything, versus to pull Android into the direction of it being a mobile OS, a tablet OS, a desktop OS, like compared to like Android TV and Wear OS, which run Android, it's really, there's a much more core, a unified phone, tablet, touch, and laptop experience. The interplay between them is so much greater than just let's put TV and Wear OS to the side here. I don't know.
It's
the benefits.
You pose a good question.
Benefit
you pose a good question because the benefits do sound like it makes sense. But I feel like having a siloed approach is good because you can help differentiate those product lines. I guess it depends on how far Google wants to separate their product lines, or do they want it just to be this is Google's OS?
Same?
Yeah, like it's end to end the same thing. I guess from an ecosystem perspective, it would be incredible, and we've seen Google try to do that with ChromeOS, haven't we? We've tried to see them add
Android
more
Android
applications, cross compatibility,
phone hub thing,
all those kind of things. Yeah, and I wonder if it does deep down make sense to have something that people buy Apple products because of the, in air quotes, ecosystem. And I wonder if this is the way to have that, to truly have that across any single Android device that you're potentially going to use. And
I would just, it doesn't need to be the same OS to be cohesive. That's the argument I would make. You can build in quick share, you can do quick transfer stuff, the phone hub notifications appear, you can launch Android apps on Chrome OS, you can have the instance of an app running on your phone on Chrome OS. The history right now, it doesn't need to be the same OS to do that. But so adding more pro level features to Android would benefit the tablet experience, obviously, and it, I don't know, bring a few more power features to phones as well. It's assuming there's not going to be some separate Android build for laptops or some separate OS like Android TV or Google or Wear OS. Assuming that's the assumption. But
does it make sense though? Does it make sense to have all of your resources, aka development resources, in one place working on one product that works across an entire lineup? I feel like that might be what is at play here, if there's any other play internally for that.
No, I agree. It's the idea of Android finally winning. There's a long history of the Android and Chrome being merged. Rumors of that, Andromeda projects. That's something that Google has thought about before in the past, that absolutely have thought about in the past, and now it looks to be finally happening with Android being the winner. It has the name recognition. It absolutely
I was
has
about to ask, does it make sense from a optics
do people
perspective?
want Android on their laptops?
Do people want iPad OS on the iPad? I feel like no. I think people want Mac OS. So
that's the other thing. That's a big part of the framing for this rumor, was that Google's doing this to take the iPad. So initially I came out, that idea didn't really sit well with me in terms of, I don't think the iPad is a market success. It's a big business for Apple, but as productivity devices, I was of the opinion that everybody eventually just graduates to a laptop. But I guess there's younger generations, especially that
who've grown up with mobile OS. Like I'm a typical millennial in that. I mean, I've said it on this podcast before. I go to the big PC or the big laptop to make purchases and things, and I feel like I don't know. Maybe where of that age bracket that the old desktop paradigm is. It's like that is the top level for us. because obviously you have that levels of complexity. I mean, from a user interface perspective, I don't know. It's a strange one because you raise a good point. I feel like there are also connotations here that tablets then effectively become small laptops.
All tablets become laptops in this.
And then is a Chromebook now a tablet? I mean, they've tried to, haven't they? We have touchscreen ChromeOS, and if I'm being honest, I don't really like it. It's just not very nice to use.
No, because they haven't committed any resources to it. They did for a hot minute, and then they stopped all development of that.
I mean, that's an indictment more of Google, isn't it? Of and they decided to do certain things and to kind of cut products.
This new approach, Android is something that gets updated constantly. It gets updated yearly. That in the pro column is the idea that projects like this get constant iteration, which I guess we've been seeing with like what the Pixel tablet has or whatever. But is a tablet a good form factor for a productivity device with a keyboard, with a optimized keyboard attachment? I would say sure. With a trackpad especially, I would say sure. It's, but I don't know. I don't think the iPad is a market success. I don't think it has taken the productivity world by storm. People absolutely use it. Again, like the young people, I don't know, business people that are on the go, like executives. That's like a cliche thing about executives using iPads because they can, because their level of work is they have other people to do the other stuff.
I think it probably, my biggest problem with the idea that Android is this kind of one-stop, one-size-fits-all solution is, to me, and I'm going to coin this term, I think this is a big phone syndrome, where iPad feels like big phone, and big phone doesn't make much sense to me. I would rather have
That's a good one.
I would rather have an implementation like Samsung DeX, because with Samsung DeX, at least you get the benefits of a technically separate desktop environment versus the phone environment. And this is, you can see this with, clearly Apple has struggled with this because they've implemented Stage Manager. And so they understand that there are very much drawbacks to having a totally almost uniform. It's a uniform experience, isn't it? You use the iPad, use an iPhone, and it is big screen syndrome. So big phone syndrome. They tried
to add that visual like manager complexity to the iPad, but I don't think it's been successful.
No.
I know this is a saying you'll probably hate, but if Apple can't do it, what are the chances of other people? I know you'll disagree with me there in terms of Apple being the be all end all of UX design, but I think they have tried they have tried to make it a good productivity experience, but I don't think in the Apple landscape, a Mac lets you do so much more in so much more familiar terms. It's just a better, more optimized experience, the Mac. And
Okay, I'll pose a question to you, because you again, we're raising, I feel like we're both raising points here because we're just thinking out loud, but more people want a touchscreen MacBook than people want a iPad with macOS on it. That's me making a bold claim. I think more people want touchscreen in macOS.
Okay, I don't use the touchscreen on my Chromebooks. Like
maybe like you said, this is the problem that we're kind of uncovering, is that ChromeOS is very touch abrasive, whereas macOS feels like it would be more touch.
A more basic
enabled.
level. This is, I think, to be productive on a computer, any computer, you need a cursor. Yeah. You need a trackpad, and you need a tiny cursor, the tiny arrow that is inherently not compatible with touch.
I mean, yeah, you can see that Apple have tried this with the iPad, and it's like a little circle dot, like a touch dot, and it just doesn't work. I've tried to use LumaFusion, it doesn't work. Yeah,
I think it looks clever, but it's a tablet. Okay, so the rumors are more it's an Android laptop versus an Android convertible. So maybe that's giving me some hope that I just don't like convertible laptops either. Like the thing where it folds back. I hate that. I hate having the keys on the back. It has to be detachable to me for it for me to actually want to use that touchscreen solo.
I mean, obviously we're evaluating it on what we see now and what is on the market now. Maybe Google has a different approach to how they tackle this, and there is a way that they can do this. And I do think that the cursor implementation in Android is actually better than it is in in iPadOS and iOS, because it's an actual cursor. Yeah, it's more conventional. Yeah. You have your general shortcuts as well, which I do think, to be fair, iPadOS is quite good at. They have it recognizes lots of keyboard shortcuts and inputs, and it's fairly similar.
People know shortcuts.
You don't think people know them?
No, I really don't.
Okay, well, I'm sure.
Besides the basic ones,
I'm showing my age there. I'm definitely showing my age there.
Command Q. I feel like people they know a handful, but I don't think they do anything extreme with it. They just go to the menu, they click the menus and whatever. But that might just be me.
Yeah, maybe. I'm definitely showing my millennial mid-30s age there. Then, I'm interested to see what a desktop Android device would look like. I think, to be quite honest with you, it would just be a Pixel tablet with a keyboard. But obviously, again, we're evaluating it on what we see today. Maybe this is something that, if it does happen, it does come to fruition, which, rightly or wrongly, if you're a big ChromeOS fan, this might be something to your detriment. We'll reevaluate when we learn a little bit more. But yeah, it's one of those things. I'm guessing it'll take a long time anyway.
It'll take a long time. I've heard when the... I'll save it for something else. But it's going to take a long time for this to happen. Even the underlying change... Okay, so in June, Google announced that the underpinnings of ChromeOS are going to go Android. Then we had this rumor this week. My question is whether there has been a change in Google's thinking between this rumor and when the original technical change news. It's the ChromeOS desktop experience. It's fine. It's actually getting really good. Like the traditional, the dock. There's some good apps now. It's a really, as a desktop OS, I like it a lot. And if my Mac was taken away from me, like that would be the next thing I use. I'd happily use ChromeOS. I feel like the thing that's changed in ChromeOS recently, well, a few years ago, is that it's from an OS that you could get by with to something you'd actually use all day willingly, because it's solid. And so the power features now these days, I think it's good. And I guess the big rumor is like, not the big rumor, but the big ask that people have had is for DeX. If the Pixel were to do DeX, if all other Android phones were to do DeX, they would want the environment that loads on that other screen to be ChromeOS. To me, that seems like a totally sane idea, but I don't think that's what Google is doing right now. They're not making it. They don't want a different OS. They want one to focus development on. Yeah,
I feel like we're trying to measure it, even though we don't necessarily have all of the information available. So yeah, so I definitely think it's one to keep an eye on, and one that I'm interested to see develop and see what happens, and obviously hear more about it if more information comes to fruition. But I'm not going to say I'm skeptical. It sounds like I'm skeptical, but I'm cautious about how this is going to benefit everyone. I think I can understand internally Google is going to make internal benefits. I can see, obviously, there's been a big push into Android and AI, and maybe there's going to be some sort of deeper integration there. I'm just on the fence. I'm just on the fence about it. I'm not the kind of person who's ever going to use Android as a desktop operating system anyway. I think I'll always use a dedicated desktop OS like Windows or Mac OS to do what I need to do. So maybe I'm not the target market.
It's kind of insane to me. Like we're talking about this. We're talking about the laptop as like this big clunky desktop. And maybe that's a natural progression of things, especially with people who use iPads and are familiar with iPads. Maybe that's the bias that we can't get through because all our lives we've been using laptops. But the idea that a laptop is this, it's too clunky, that it's this old form factor that needs to be modernized, I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it also poses that point. I think it wraps it up this point quite nicely, is that going back to what Apple have done in their own marketing campaigns is what is a computer? And I think that probably sums it. I think that sums it up quite perfectly. Like, what is a computer for people moving forward? And if it means Android, then to some people that's going to be enough, isn't it? Like most people do a lot of work on. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I would love the opportunity to use a desktop kind of desktop environment with something like the Pixel Fold. Whether we'll see it, I don't know. It remains to be seen. There was also something really cool that I was reading this morning. I've been it's been a blur this week, and it pertains to actual post setup and copying things from Android over the course of the year. Because this is one of my banes of my existence as someone who has lots of review units and stuff. Can you just give me an overview of that? Because I didn't read this fully. Kind of glanced at it this morning.
So the high level is Android has a new system for apps and for developers to when you set up a new device, you already logged into all your apps. There are all the existing ways to do this and part of the transfer process. But Google's new way here is that developers don't have to do anything. So basically, on your old device, when you sign in, it makes a key. Let's call it a key. And then that key gets saved to the cloud. And when you get a new device and you transfer all your apps and existing data, that key is moved to the new device. And when you open the app, everything is signed in. Or there's a way for developers to already sign you in ahead of time, so you immediately start getting notifications before you even launch the app on your new device for the first time. So basically, it's really trying to tackle a pain point of signing into all your apps, your various services.
And that, to me, sounds like heaven, because I know that obviously iOS does something similar already. Am I right in thinking that? Because I don't set up that many iOS devices. But I'm pretty sure when you sign in again on a brand new iPhone, it does pull everything across, and most of your applications, if not all of them, are signed in. And I think maybe this could be like kind of one of those silver bullets for problems that people potentially have when upgrading to a device. Having everything ready to rock and roll sounds absolutely incredible. And
the other part that goes hand in hand with the idea that you can transfer your data after you set up your phone. Because I think that people just want to start using the new thing. I think that's a good thing that Google touched on. You just want your new shiny phone. You don't want to wait an hour or so. Well, it's less than that for everything to transfer over, but start praying, literally.
And this currently works on as part of that new Android Switch app. No, that's actually
yes, the Android Switch app. Yes,
Android Switch app. But this is Pixel only for now. But it's going to be more OEMs in 2025.
Yep.
Well, great news for me when I'm testing phones next year. Probably for anyone who's going to be looking for an upgrade or switch devices as well. And yeah, I think that kind of leads me to another point that we found out this week is that I suppose it is kind of breaking, is that you could see more applications like Fitbit preloaded on devices moving forward. That the first of this is the Find X8 series from Oppo. I think they're actually the first non-Google phones to come with the Fitbit application pre-installed. So
yeah, just as a reminder to people, you can use the Fitbit app without Fitbit without a wearable. Just by itself, you can do phone-based step tracking. There's a nice widget for it. You can log stuff like food or water. You can as a step tracker, Fitbit is quite good, quite okay. Quite Google Fit-esque.
But this is I think that's one thing that we're still not sure about what's going to happen with Google Fit in future. But it's interesting to see that Google Fit wasn't actually pre-installed on the Find X8 series. So could be something that changes over the next year or so. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on at the moment. I think
I think our very final note is you have some toys with me to talk about.
I do, yeah. So push the Fitbit thing to the side. I don't. Obviously, in the UK, guys out there who've potentially looked with envy at the Dead Zebra Android minifigs that were originally sold globally due to Brexit, according to Dead Zebra's websites, in terms of like import fees and stuff like that, they're not actually available officially to the UK unless you make a big order. So that meant Android fans out there, you can't get what you need in terms of like accessories, cool stuff. But luckily, the Google Merchandise Store, which is run by a company called Brand Edition in the UK, they've started selling the Android bot minifigs, the brand new ones, which I think we saw a couple of years ago for the first time at CES, was it? The big reveal. Really cool statue. Eventually, they've started making these minifigs. They're incredible. The quality difference is night and day with the previous version. And yeah, you can get these in the UK now. I've spent a fortune on these.
Perfect for the holiday season.
Perfect for the holiday season. So if you have any Android fans out there, Android fans, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're a massive Pixel fan anyway. Go over to the Google Merchandise Store in the UK and you can pick these up. I think they're about, sadly, due to shipping fees, I think it's a £5. So you're talking about £30 each. Or if you order them all together, it's about £70, which is, for American listeners out there, it's about $100, which is expensive. Yeah, but I have the collection of three now. I have the glow in the dark version, the original green Android bot that you'll see everywhere, and they have a limited. They call it the holiday edition. I call it the Christmas jumper, Christmas sweater edition, with his little beanie on the top. Phenomenal, genuinely three of the best official accessories I've used for anything. They're so cool. The quality's, yeah, highly recommended. I think if anyone out there is looking for a Christmas gift or a holiday gift for someone, go check these out. If you're in the US, you'll get them a lot cheaper from the Dead Zebra website. I think they're about $14, maybe about $20 with shipping. Highly recommend them. And yeah, they're way better than the previous generation. But yeah, I just love them. They're so cute.
They're fun for the holidays. It's like if you want to get somebody that's tech savvy a gift, but don't actually want to get them a technology thing which they probably already have a better version of, or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
If you're doing price points and stuff, get this. Get them a non-technological, technology-esque gift. It's fun, and I always love that.
Yeah, and they're marginally posable as well, so you can pose it. Like, they come in a little box. They're great. I highly recommend them. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Obviously, we are proud to have you guys listen to us. We're happy that you tuned in. I can't believe we're in episode 32. I keep saying this every episode.
No, it's milestones.
The year has evaporated, and this week specifically has been a big blur. I just want to say thanks for joining me, Abner. But before we go, we're not going to be here for Thanksgiving, guys. So we just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you in advance. Mm-hmm. And yeah, hopefully you have a little rest period. And we'll be back again with episode 33 in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, stay tuned.
Bye.